Hello everyone and welcome to the Week 8 Millionaire Lineup Review, where we review the winners of the FanDuel Sunday Million and the DraftKings Millionaire Maker. So this week I did not win $1 million. I really did not get close. I had a losing week and didn't work out so well. But I think it was a really interesting week for the winners of these tournaments because a lot of the things that we expected did not really happen. And I think that these players who won these tournaments did a good job about picking solid plays and not getting swept into the high-owned plays that seemed like, oh, these guys are locks, when in reality, apparently, they were not. These are guys like Julio Jones, who only had 4.4 points. Now, he twisted an ankle during the game, but still, Spencer Ware also had a concussion, 40% owned. Mike Evans, 55% on. This is insane. Only 9 points. There's a lot of guys who we really expect them to do well, and they just simply did not. So I think when the weeks are short like this, and there's one more this week where there's only about 10 games, I think, in the main slate in total. When you have a short week like that, it makes it so lineups like this can become a bit more ideal. So I know that I talked about it on a lineup construction video last week about how if you go with a non-chalky stack, you can basically mostly go chalk for the rest of your lineup. So I'm not sure if this guy, Al BYB, felt like he was making a not very chalky lineup, but he definitely went against the grain without... He didn't use Spencer Ware, he didn't use Devonta Booker, he did not use Julio Jones. He did not use Mike Evans. And in a week where all those players did pretty badly, it really worked out in his favor. Now, we're starting to realize how predictable is football. You know, when you have Mike Evans in a great matchup, is he always going to have a great game? If you have Spencer Ware in a great matchup, he could get injured, and now he doesn't have a great game either. There's a lot of unknown unknowns. So I think making a lineup like this where you're being contrarian but sticking with solid players at each position can be really good. So the funny thing is, Al BYB, he used Derek Carr and Michael Crabtree, so he actually didn't use the quote-unquote correct stack here with Amari Cooper. The guy who's in second place, Big Guy 38, actually did use the stack, but he actually, by using Mike Evans, basically screwed himself. I mean, these lineups are very, very similar, but the only difference is he used Mike Evans that held his lineup down just enough where he couldn't get first place. Now, back to this winning lineup, I think there are some real interesting plays here and some ownerships that I didn't expect. I think Travis Kelce at only 10% ownership. It's had a bad season, but the Colts are one of the best matchups for tight ends, so I'm surprised at its low ownership, and that just goes to show that, you know, if you have players who just haven't been performing for a long time, people might sleep on them a bit, especially in a week where there's some juicy tight ends like Jimmy Graham and things like, and what's his name? Jack Doyle as well. But if you actually look at Kansas City's red zone targets, and here I'm on NFLsavant.com, and this is free. If you look at Chiefs red zone targets this year, Travis Kelce actually has a 25% target share this year, which is actually up from last year. So that's a really encouraging sign. He also is getting good targets. So I think that in a good matchup, we can expect him to do well. And this is the tricky thing about weeks where there's not many players to choose from, is you might actually want to favor these guys even more who people might be overlooking, like a Kelce, who just haven't performed in a while and might get lower ownership than expected. But the real interesting plays here, I'll just get back to the non-factors. I think Forte was a solid play. I obviously thought Spencer was way better, but I think that's a solid play. And one could make an argument because of the ownership difference that Forte is better. I'm not sure if that's the case. Devonta Freeman, he's someone I liked. I'm actually 20% ownership is a little low, but with Tevin Coleman out, this play makes total sense, and I don't think it was a contrarian thing at all. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb was out. He had a really bad game against whoever they played on Chicago on last Thursday night. But this is a nice bounce back spot, especially with Cobb out. Definitely makes sense. Crabtree makes sense. Dan Bailey and the Broncos D makes sense. The real interesting play here is Dez Bryant. If I knew that he's going to be 1% owned wow, I may have played him a lot more because I guess there's definitely an unknown situation here, but Des Bryant is a guy who should really be at like that 8,200, 8,500 range. So he was definitely underpriced here. It's at least a reasonable matchup versus Philly. I guess there is some unknown here about how much he was going to play. But if I were actually making this lineup, I think what I would have done is use Dak Prescott instead. Because if Des Bryant does well and surprises, then I'd rather just leverage that with a good Dak Prescott game instead of just going Derek Carr and Michael Crabtree. Now, that wouldn't have won, but I think that's better logic when you're using such a low-owned but higher upside wide receiver like Bryant to just go ahead and go with this QB and basically leverage that low-owned play doing really well. That being said, maybe Al BYB did not know that Des Bryant was going to be low on, so you didn't think of that. But I just want to clarify that if you do have a low-end wide receiver that you're planning on using, I think this is a smart idea. So let's just move on to the Millionaire Maker. This is one by a game named Jax 101. And he actually really did well. He had multiple lineups in the top 10. And I'm just going to look at the top one. I think the reason was he used a lot of Derek Carr and Amari Cooper. But I think the play that interests me the most here is the play of Theo Riddick. So I really like plays like this that are basically morning news-based plays because most people just set their lineups the night before, early in the week, and they don't like to make drastic changes in the morning, and they don't want to overreact because they're set with their lineups, and that makes sense. But when there's a clear play like this that someone turns into a good play because morning news, I find that they're really great tournament plays. I tried to do this with Zach Center 2 weeks ago in a similar situation, but basically what happened was Dwayne Washington, who we thought was going to come back this week, who is their starting running back in place of Amir Abdullah, actually was scratched even though he's practicing all week. So what that said to me was, oh, wait a second, Theo Riddick is playing. He was upgraded to full on Thursday, so he's practicing in full, coming off an ankle injury. What this says to me is, wow, maybe they're thinking of using Riddick more than we think. And this was a guy who's getting 60 to 7% of snaps before he got injured. Justin Forsett is their third running back. He signed with the team 2 weeks ago. Zach Zenner is not very good. So this really made sense. It would have been a gutsy call to go, hey, I'm going to use Theo Riddick because of this news. Especially on DraftKings, though, where he's a pass-catching running back, and he was only 5,000. Wow, I wish I would have thought of this. It kind of came to mind, but I want to say, if there are morning news plays like this, these guys become fantastic plays. And I'm actually surprised he even got 6% ownership, and I wonder if this guy Jax had all his lineups have Riddick. But I think plays like this are really, really underrated for tournaments. And I think they make fantastic plays. And this one won him the Millionaire Maker because without Riddick in this lineup, and he certainly would not have won. Now, one thing that goes against the normal thing that I suggest is he used running back in the flex. I think that given how contrarian his lineup is, that's more okay because obviously it limits the upside of his lineup, but basically a lineup like this that is really contrarian, he's not using Mike Evans, he's not using the chalky running backs besides Booker. A lineup like this that's really contrarian is going to thrive when things don't go right. And if you're trying to make a lineup that's going to thrive when things don't go right, the upside doesn't have to be they're that high. So I think that this is an okay move overall. I wouldn't recommend it for a more chalky lineup, but congratulations to Jax101. Congratulations to AlBYB777. I hope I'm saying that name right. And wow, well done. I mean, obviously this was a very, very good week for the contrarian players, and it worked out quite well. I sadly was not totally one of them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you like it, click the like button. which is a thumbs up, and click the subscribe button. And if you like it, please share it on Twitter or social media and just spread the word, because I really, I want to do this so people will view it. So thank you again for watching, and good luck this week.